So, you like listening to creepypastas? Well, that's good. You and me are a lot alike then. But, let me give you a friendly warning. Whatever you do, don't fall asleep listening to creepypastas. For some people, it's nothing more than bad nightmares. For some, they don't remember anything. But then there are those who never wake up at all. Or even worse, for those that don't wake up. Sometimes, just sometimes, they do. This is the story of Marilyn Cooper. Marilyn was 14 years old. Your typical schoolgirl. She was young, cute, everything you'd expect. Had a boyfriend. Would go to the movies, hang out with friends. But she did have one passion that is not super common of girls her age. She loved listening to creepypastas. Every day, she would go to school, come home, do her homework and chores, watch TV, browse the web, talk to her boyfriend on the phone, or through text messages. And then she would lay down on her bed, put her earbuds in, and start surfing for pastas to listen to. Laying alone in her dark room, she would be tormented by all of the creatures and characters that us of the pasta community have come to love or hate, admire or despise. But one night, after a grueling day of exams and tests and whatnot, coming home and having to do a lot of chores, more so than usual, a tired Marilyn lay down on her bed, her head resting on her soft pillow. And she put her earbuds in and started cruising for a new pasta. She scrolled down the page on her phone, watched, and watched all the YouTube videos. And she sighed. There's nothing like finding a brand new pasta. That perfect one that just makes your night when you listen to it. You know how it is. Then she saw a playlist in the search. She didn't recognize the username. None of the big ones like Mr. Creepypasta, Creeps, Mr. Nightmare, Creepypasta Jr. You know who I'm talking about. No, this was someone new. Someone different. They only had 36 videos, and all of them in a neat little playlist. To protect you, I'm not going to reveal the name of this person. I'm sure the FBI has already closed down the account and are searching for the people responsible. But still, one can never be too careful. Anyway, the name of the pasta intrigued her, so she clicked on it, or tapped on it, as it doesn't really matter. The pasta began with silence, then a voice, and then your typical pasta music. But it was fresh, new, and good. She could feel the quivers and shivers. She could feel her breath beginning to increase, her heart rate. The sweat started to pour down her face. With each passing video, they got darker and more sadistic. By the fourth or fifth, she actually started thinking about just backing out of the video and listening to something else that she was more familiar with, because these were getting too intense. But she was only halfway through this one, and she had to see how it ended. So, she listened. Seconds felt like minutes, minutes like hours. And before she knew it, exhaustion had taken its hold, and she fell asleep before the video ended. The playlist kept on, deeper and darker. The next morning, her mother realized she had not come down for breakfast yet. So she went upstairs and gently knocked on Marilyn's door. When there was no answer, she assumed her daughter just slept in a little bit. So she gently grabbed the door handle and began to open the door. Peering into the room, she saw her daughter laying on her bed. As she got closer, however, she noticed that her daughter's face was contorted, as if she was terrified. She began by gently calling to her daughter, "Marilyn, Marilyn." With no response, she began to gently shake her daughter, trying to wake her up. No response. After about a minute of this, she started to worry. She began violently trying to wake her daughter up, with no success. After a few minutes had gone by, she dialed 911 and had her daughter rushed to the hospital. The doctors told her mother that she was in a coma, but her brain activity is what puzzled them. It was as if she was having the worst nightmare of her life, and there was nothing they could do to wake her up. Day by day, night by night, her mother came to visit her, friends and family, even her boyfriend, until he decided he couldn't continue a relationship with a, how should we say, more or less vegetable, and decided to go after the young girl he had been having his eye on for the past few months. Marilyn would never be the wiser in his mind, because she would never wake up. One dark, still night, a nurse was making her rounds. As she came to Marilyn's room, everything seemed in its place. She checked her vitals, made sure everything was right, and then all of a sudden, the power went out. The nurse, startled by this, nearly dropped her clipboard. The power will come back on any moment from the emergency generator, she thought. And that's when she heard it. The nurse froze. She didn't know what that sound could be, nor did she want to. At that moment, the lights came back on, and what that nurse saw scarred her for life. The girl, Marilyn Cooper, was sitting up in her bed, but she didn't look right. Her back was arched, as if she was being held up by an invisible force. Her head hung low, eyes rolled back in her head, mouth wide open, tongue hanging unnaturally out to the side. She started shaking, having convulsions. The nurse gasped at this, and at that sound, Marilyn's eyes immediately snapped back into place. But they were not the pretty blue they had once been. They were dark pools of black. She stared at the nurse, tongue slithering back into her mouth and jaw snapping shut. She glared at this nurse, and then screamed in a voice that can only be described as demonic in nature. One sentence. At that moment, the power went off once again. The nurse, now with her back to the wall, heard creaking as of somebody getting off the bed, then footsteps. Getting closer. Then a gentle, deep breathing in her ear. Then footsteps once again, getting further away. The sound of metal scraping against metal. And then the room got very cold. The lights once again returned, and the source of the sound of metal and cold in the room was revealed. The window of the 4th floor of the hospital was open, and Marilyn Cooper was nowhere to be seen. Do you want to know the name of the creepypasta she was listening to when she fell asleep? The name of that creepypasta was Don't Fall Asleep While You're Listening to Creepypastas.